The series starts in Korea, exhibiting countless individuals who all seem, by all accounts, to be representatives, working tirelessly, even with the end result of holding their telephones as they head to work. It additionally features that Korea was exceptionally effective in ventures at that point, with all representatives working genuinely. Moreover, online conveyance administrations were beginning to spread in Korea. A person wearing a game's coat shows up and everybody is entranced by it. The coat turns out to be famous to such an extent that everybody begins looking for itself and even organizations start producing a similar coat. The coat spreads generally and soon everybody is wearing it. The organization's chief concludes that on August 15th, they will sell around 100 pieces as another delivery, naming it the Louis coat. They set a cost for each coat and their deal's twofold. They effectively advance the item actually. There's just a single coat left, evaluated at around $10,000. The following day, Louis shows up and everybody begins calling him the ruler of Louis shopping in view of his extraordinary achievement. Nonetheless, he starts to feel depleted from workaholic behavior as he is awesome at his specific employment, to the point that he eats rapidly to return to work. Mr. Kim pursues him to give him medication, yet Louis will not take it until he begins draining from his nose. He is sorry, saying that these are orders from his grandma, Lady Choi. He then goes to work in his exceptionally rich vehicle. His grandma had requested the staff not to allow him to take off from the house, drive the vehicle, or cause whatever could damage him. Louis goes to a retail chain and starts purchasing everything in sight. He purchases such a lot of that the store gives him a gift. Nonetheless, he isn't satisfied with the gift, however feels obliged to acknowledge his grandma Lady Choi gets back from her excursion and goes to the organization where the workers discuss her and her grandson Louis. Abruptly his better half Marie appears and chides them. She calls Louis, yet he isn't in that frame of mind to converse with her by any stretch of the imagination. Be that as it may, he hesitantly answers and reproves her, telling her not to continue to call him, and finishes the call unexpectedly. He then, at that point, turns on the television and sees a provincial young lady named Shil, who is introducing a report. The second he sees her, he can't quit gazing as though he is enamored by her. Mr. Kim lets him know that he never watches home shopping programs, however Louis overlooks him. Shil begins recounting living with her grandma and more youthful sibling. She in no way wants to move to another house. Louis asks Mr. Kim to find out where she resides so he can send her a few new items. Yet Mr. Kim answers, saying they don't have power. How might they utilize the items you're sending? Shil tracks down something entirely important, however she will not offer it to pay for her grandma's treatment. She likewise specifies that her sibling, Nam, took off from home. Shil gets back, excited in light of the fact that she figured out how to get the cash for her grandma's treatment. Notwithstanding, when she returns home, she finds her grandma has died and begins crying. It's pouring and there are storms, however Louis chooses to set up a birthday celebration for David. Mr. Kim cautions him that this could cause a mishap in such climate. At first, Louis doesn't tune in, however when Mr. Kim tells him these are his grandma's requests, he re-examines. Figuring his grandma did all of this for him. Shil chooses to take a train to track down her sibling, yet she experiences a lady who gives off an impression of being a hoodlum. The lady professes to be wiped out, and when Shil goes to make her something to drink, the lady takes her pack. Shil looks for her sack, yet can't track down it. She goes to a prearranged meeting as she's oncoming 40, however she's completely against the possibility of marriage. During the date, Louis messes things up by ridiculing the lady, calling attention to every one of her blemishes. She lashes out and leaves. Back to push, she's sitting at the train station with no cash. She attempts to report the robbery to the police, yet they don't help. She chooses to track down somebody to get her spices. She sees a man named John, and attempts to convince him to purchase the spices, however he declines. At last, he concurs when she lets him know the spices are exceptionally uncommon. At the point when he requests the cost, she says $1,000. John is distrustful, thinking about how intriguing spices could be evaluated so low. Louis chooses to get away, and Mr. Kim sees him yet can't stop him. At the point when his grandma figures out she becomes extremely ill, Louis feels horrible and chooses to visit her. At the point when his grandma recuperates, she chooses to move all that to Louis's name. Shil proceeds with her quest for her sibling, thinking one individual, who ends up being Louis. The story then streaks back to Louis driving back from France. However, he is trailed via vehicles, and it's uncovered that his uncle is behind all of this. Since his grandma chose to move every one of her resources for him, Louis winds up destitute, experiencing total cognitive decline. He even gets beaten and embarrassed, with everybody confusing him with a transient. Individuals begin giving him cash out of pity until Shil runs over him, confusing him with her sibling. She chastens him, guaranteeing the coat he's wearing has a place with her sibling. She takes him to the police, believing he's a criminal. Yet, the police have no proof against him. They call attention to that many individuals wear similar coat and they let him go. Shil then, at that point, chooses to take him with her. At the point when his grandma finds out about this, she falls genuinely sick. Louis chases after Shil, and when he eats, she pays for his food. She even takes him to her work environment, which ends up being his own organization. Louis taunts her for filling in as a more clean. Yet, she counters saying she might be a cleaner, yet essentially she's not a bum like him. She advises him to sit tight for her there. But since of his way of behaving, he gets removed from the organization. Shil then, at that point, calls John to request the remainder of her cash, yet he overlooks her and won't give her anything. At the point when she finds Louis sitting tight for her external the organization, he requests that she get him some espresso. She concurs, and thereafter she takes him to a sauna where he puts on something else totally. Louis concedes that he's consistently terrified of being beaten, and she lets him know she burned through huge load of cash on him. He requests that she guarantee that she will remain with him until he recovers his memory and finds his family, to which she concurs. Marie, in the meantime, is crying over Louis, and her mom attempts to comfort her. Her mom enlightens her that she's not really vexed concerning Louis's passing, yet rather about losing the opportunity to wed the beneficiary of the organization, and that implies she won't acquire anything now. Louis asks Shil for cash and she hesitantly gives it to him. Louis's grandma turns out to be fundamentally sick, driving his uncle to assume command over every one of the resources, feeling extremely satisfied with himself. Shil continues to call John, however incidentally spills espresso on her telephone. Louis discovers some cash, however he's blamed for taking it. Shil shows up, yet she just has $50. While the lady requests $100, Shil is compelled to pay the rest, and they are both thrown out, left ravenous. They go to a spot to eat, yet everybody gazes at them due to how they eat. Unintentionally, Shil sees the one who took her sack and starts pursuing her, advising Louis to wait. She gets on a transport, yet neglects to get the cheat. In any case, when the criminal believes she's gotten away, she thinks back and sees Shil actually pursuing her. Shil ultimately gets up to speed, treats the hoodlum's harmed leg, and discovers that she came to Seoul to track down her grandson. The cheat apologizes, making sense of she took the pack since she had no cash. Shil consents to allow her to go in return for the dress she's wearing, which had a place with her mom. A while later, Shil returns to search for Louis, who is as yet pausing. A gathering of young ladies sees Louis and errors him for somebody well off. At the point when he lets them know he has no cash, they believe he's kidding, so they take him with them and begin looking through him. Finding no cash, they beat him up, making him recollect a few divided recollections. Shil shows up and gets thumped too, losing all her cash all the while. She reproves Louis for allowing them to hit her, however he has no other choice except for to call John. She has a go at calling him, however he doesn't reply. Shil winds up strolling to work, and Louis requests to go with her. She slips him into the organization without anybody taking note. He tells her he needs to rest, so she takes him to the washroom, letting him know it's the most secure spot to rest without being seen. While he's resting, Louis hears a clamor and finds John, who starts pursuing him yet neglects to get him. Louis gets into a lift with Marie, who starts thinking he may be Louis. She pursues him until Shil intercedes, assisting Louis with stowing away. She chides him for not adhering to her guidelines and requests that her manager track down her a modest spot to remain. In the interim, John fixes his telephone and asks why Shil hasn't called him, uninformed that her telephone was taken. John's folks, in the meantime, sold the spices Shil had left in the cooler for $5,000. At the point when John finds out, he furiously defies them, inquiring as to why they did that. Shil in the end finds John once more and hollers at him for not noting her calls, blaming him for being a hoodlum. John pushes her, making her weak. Marie, assessing the security film, understands that Louis is as yet alive and is stunned on the grounds that she accepted he was dead. An unusual man named Sung welcomes Louis to eat, making Louis pay for the feast. Sung is interested about Louis's story, however Louis makes sense of that he has amnesia and doesn't remember anything. John takes Shil to the emergency clinic, where she is treated for hunger. At the point when she awakens and sees John, she begins chiding him, however he gives her $4,000, advising all her $1,000 for the medical clinic bill. Shil is paralyzed and excited, expressing gratitude toward John plentifully. Louis hangs tight for Shil, and when he sees her, he is exceptionally cheerful and takes her out to eat. At the point when she asks him for what good reason they're eating outside, he tells her there's a bug inside. She returns in and kills the bug right away. As he takes a gander at her, Louis starts to recollect seeing her previously. At the point when he asks her, she lets him know it's whenever she first has seen him. His grandma is exceptionally miserable about him and even won't eat, however Mr. Tim brings her the food that he used to adore. Shil goes to the market with Lou, and they purchase a great deal of things. They go out to eat, and he requests that she get him garments. He purchases a ton of garments and afterward requests that she get him a telephone. At first she rejects, however at last she consents to purchase the telephone. At the point when they get back, he tells her that the things are excessively weighty for him to convey, so she leaves and goes to the police headquarters, giving the cop her number. She lets him know that along these lines, she will actually want to track down her sibling. Nonetheless, the official answers that her sibling should have the telephone and they likewise need a number. He guarantees her that they will attempt to track down her sibling. Afterward, she gets back and sure sets up a shade to isolate herself from Lou. Mary inquires as to whether Lou actually has a twin sibling. He answers that he doesn't. She then, at that point, lets him know that she saw somebody who very closely resembled him at the organization. He reviews when he gave him the vehicle keys, meaning to kill him and take all his property. The following day, Shil washes both her garments and Lou's. She sees that his garments have the name Lou on them. Melody tells her that the name suits him and they begin calling him Lou. They welcome Melody to go along with them for a dinner and he winds up eating all the food. While Shil is dozing around evening time, she ponders her sibling. The following day, she goes to her work and somebody remarks that her garments are not good. He needs her, however she overlooks him and leaves. He pursues her and makes her a little bloom, putting it on her dress, saying that it presently looks much better. She is extremely cheerful and goes to work feeling great. At the point when she shows up working, she winds up working in the advancement division. From the get-go, the representatives believe she's there to clean the workplace, yet he comes and lets them know that she will be working with them and will be waiting on the post-trial process for a month to evaluate her capacities. At the point when Mary hears this, she goes to tell everything to her dad, who is the top of the organization. He calls for John and chides him. John answers that he did this since they were short-staffed. Shil starts her new position and they request that she utilize the PC, yet she doesn't have the foggiest idea how, so they are astonished and giggle at her. They ridicule her and inquire as to whether she has a telephone. She gets extremely invigorated and lets them know that she has a telephone. Lou looks for his name on the web, however tracks down nothing. Toon comes to him, intending to eat together. He lets him know that they ought to get a rice-making machine. Lou orders one on the web alongside numerous different things, despite the fact that they have no cash. Shell gets back and starts cleaning while Lou watches Bizarre puts on television. He lets Shell know that he has been to that spot previously. Melody comes over and proposes an arrangement. In return for cash, he will assist with tracking down her sibling and Lou. She concurs and they begin looking, disseminating pictures all over the place. At the point when they go to the market to purchase a couple of things, Lou winds up purchasing a great deal. He sees a music box, and when he contacts it, he starts to recollect his previous lifestyle. Be that as it may, the recollections are foggy and he turns out to be extremely drained. Shell deals with him. His grandma won't eat and visits the spots Lou used to adore. Thinking back about their recollections together. The following morning they eat, and she lets him know that he was extremely wiped out the earlier day. He answers that he needs to go out to look for her sibling, which makes her extremely cheerful, and he begins following her all over the place. At the point when she asks him for what valid reason he's following her all over, he answers that he loves her. She is blissful and goes to work. She begins becoming familiar with utilizing the PC and investigating the organization, recollecting when they told her that the organization's heir had passed on. Notwithstanding, Kong sees her and reproves her, requesting that she present to him the significant records he wants. A more interesting calls Lou and deceives him, professing to be from the Monetary Oversight Division, and requests that he move all his cash. Lou succumbs to the stunt and gives them the $2 million they had. They understand they were misled, and Lou feels remorseful in light of the fact that it was Shell's cash. At the point when Shell gets back, she finds that he has arranged food and left a note saying she shouldn't search for him since he's resentful about losing all her cash. Lou sees a canine and recollects his canine from when he was youthful, shouting to it. Shell comes to him and he tells her beginning and end, including how he needed to find his character. He tells her that he perceives the canine, however the canine's proprietor comes and removes it. Toon lets his mom know that Lou seems as though he's from an exceptionally rich family. Shell chides Lou and leaves, however he pursues her, saying, sorry, over and again. At the point when they get back, Lou promptly begins eating as though nothing had occurred. Shell sees that he has purchased numerous things, so she reproves him. Lou gets terrified and rushes to Toon's place to eat with him. Melody's mom chides Lou, lets Shell know that Lou is most likely lying and professing to have lost his memory. An image of Lou's uncle shows up, and Melody lets his mom know that he feels like he's seen him previously and chooses to visit the organization to check whether he remembers him. Shell goes to the cop looking for her sibling and lets him know everything, including how a trickster deceived Lou and took all their cash. The official advises her that they will attempt to find him, however getting telephone misrepresentation crimes is troublesome. Shell gets back and brings nourishment for Lou. He tells her that when he has huge amount of cash, he will get her a lot of it. The following day, Toon advises Shell that he needs to send off another item and work on herself. In the interim, an individual calling himself Lou the Shopping Lord scrutinizes their items, making the workers accept that Lou could in any case be alive. Lou and Melody go to the retail plaza, and Lou feels like he's seen this spot previously. At that point, Maria's mom sees him while he's shopping, however Melody notification and they escape before anybody can call the police. Louis considers Shell and tells her that he's at the organization's entry and believes her should emerge to give him food. She concurs, and Kong sees Louis, yet doesn't understand what his identity is. Maria's mom calls her significant other, Louis's uncle, and lets him know that she saw Louis in a vehicle conversing with Kong. Notwithstanding, when Louis shows up, he sees his uncle from a good ways and gets terrified, taking off. At the point when Kong is addressed, he denies everything since he doesn't perceive Louis and says it's simply a conventional individual he doesn't have the foggiest idea. The uncle becomes dubious and goes to the individual he had recently employed to kill Louis, saying that Louis should not have passed on and that another person should have kicked the bucket in his place. At the point when Louis returns, he finds a seat in the city and brings it back home. At the point when Shyle returns, she tracks down the house wrecked and reproves him, inquiring as to whether he purchased the seat. He answers that he found it in the city and brought it home. She then, at that point, begins showing him how to clean the house. Toon's mom gives Louis an undertaking to strip some garlic, and when he gets worn out, he purchases a costly sets of glasses and different things to assist him with stripping the garlic. Shyle returns home from work and reproves him once more, however later apologizes and they sit outside. Louis makes sense of a thought for a venture which includes a container plan. Shyle imparts this plan to Maria, who is excited and takes the undertaking thought, introducing it as her own to everybody. Shyle is stunned and they go to observe Maria. In the restroom, Shyle goes up against Maria, who tells her that she really saved her, since, in such a case that Shyle had introduced the thought, it would have been discarded. Shyle passes on and the representatives keep on discussing her until Kong shows up. Shyle is disturbed coming back. However, when she gets off the transport, she finds Louis sitting tight for her, which makes her extremely cheerful. They return home together. The following morning, she finds Louis cleaning her shoes. At the point when she will work, she tracks down a gift in front of her, and the representatives propose that it should be from Maria. Shyle takes it to discard it, yet Kong approaches her and tells her that he knows it all and that the venture thought was hers. Shyle is excited in light of the fact that this affirmation is enough for her, and the task becomes effective, with the container configurations spreading all over. One evening, Shyle turns out to be extremely sick, and Louis deals with her throughout the evening. Toon's mom discovers that Shyle is debilitated and gets ready nourishment for her. The following morning, Louis awakens to find that Shyle has previously gone to work, so he goes to her office. Louis's uncle finds that the individual who passed on in the mishap wasn't Louis, yet another person. He then turns upward and sees Louis before him. Louis spots Shyle and runs towards her, and his uncle is stunned by how the situation is playing out. Shyle removes Louis, and a partner from work sees them clasping hands, yet doesn't have the foggiest idea what to say. Louis then tells her that he is her sweetheart, which amazes her. Shyle leaves him and goes to educate her other associates regarding Shyle's sweetheart. At the point when Kong hears this, he blows up and leaves. Louis's uncle meets with somebody, gives them Shile's name and requests that he figure out what her association with Kong is. At the point when they get back, Shile finds the house wrecked once more, and her chief, Kong, shows up and begins shouting at her, asking how she could allow somebody to like Louis live with her. Melody's mom tells Louis that Kong should be enamored with Shile in light of the fact that he used to visit her routinely when she was in the clinic. Louis begins feeling desirous. Shile clears up everything for Kong, recounting to him her whole story with Louis. Nonetheless, Kong is upset and tells her that it's not proper to allow a vagrant to remain with her. However, he's just saying this since he understands he's beginning to care deeply about her. He attempts to persuade Louis to come live with him in his home, feeling like he's seen Louis someplace previously, yet can't recollect where. Kong tells Melody everything, and Toon says that Kong likes Shile, which is the reason he believes Louis should leave him alone with her. A man working for Louis's uncle provides Toon's mom with large chunk of change to enlighten him everything regarding Louis. She lets him know every one of the subtleties, and the man reports everything back to Louis's uncle. The uncle fears that this may be an arrangement among Louis and Kong. Louis tells Shile that Kong requested that he live with him and notices that Melody's mom thinks Kong is infatuated with her. Shile is stunned when she hears this, yet Louis asks her not to leave him. She guarantees him that she won't ever leave him since he dealt with her when she was debilitated. She additionally lets him know that what she fears most is lightning storm, since it helps her to remember the day her folks passed on. Louis holds her hand and solaces her. Kong continues to ponder Shile, and when he sees her, he goes on her and Maria on an outing to Busan. At the point when Maria finds out, she can't handle it. At the point when they show up, Shile is cheerful, and Louis calls Shile to find out where she is so he can go to her. Louis's grandma and Mr. Family see remarks online about the glasses, one of which is from somebody named Louis the shopping lord. They are stunned, and Louis's uncle calls Mr. Family getting some information about Louis in light of the fact that he's worried about the possibility that Shile or Kong could let him know that Louis is as yet alive. Louis shows up at the island and lets Melody know that he feels like he's seen this spot previously. Louis nearly sees his grandma, yet his uncle rapidly removes her before she can detect him. Louis then goes to Shile, however she chastens him for coming here, which makes him upset. Mr. Family lets Louis's grandma know that he saw a remark under the name Louis, and that Louis should in any case be alive. She turns out to be extremely blissful, however Louis's uncle yells at him, it's difficult to say. He tries to receive Kong tipsy until he's totally in return, and he educates the grandma's servant to report all her news back to him. In the interim, Louis lets Shile and Toon know that he feels like he's seen this spot previously. Shile is extremely content with the view, and Louis recommends they stay there for the evening. Nonetheless, Toon denies and leaves them. As Louis begins to recollect things from an earlier time, he ends up being extremely bothered. Shile attempts to quiet him down, and afterward they return to Seoul. Shile concocts an arrangement that everybody cherishes and is exceptionally amped up for, yet Mary turns out to be incredibly envious. Kong advises Shile that he will broaden her agreement for one more year, which makes her extremely cheerful. At the point when she gets back, she tells Toon and Louis that her agreement has been expanded, and she welcomes them to celebrate with a dinner. Toon proposes that she wants to change her appearance for her new position, so they generally go out for makeovers, yet they wind up looking very alarming. Louis gets her a blossom, yet while going across the road, a vehicle hits him. The driver ends up being Mary, who is stunned when she understands it's Louis. At the point when Louis recovers cognizance, he can't recollect that anything and asks Mary for 3001. At the point when she inquires as to whether he recalls her, he says no. She hangs tight for him, and when he at last sees her, he tells her beginning and end. She demands taking him to the emergency clinic in spite of his hesitance, and he gets back vexed in light of the fact that they burned through 3001 on the emergency clinic. In the meantime, Mary has taken Louis' number and calls him requesting to meet. As they talk, she understands from his approach to talking that he is to be sure Louis. She promptly goes to her dad and lets him know everything. Her dad affirms that he realizes Louis is alive and teaches her not to tell anybody, since he is the person who merits the fortune, not Louis, who really buckled down for it. The following day, Sherry lets Louis know that she has consistently longed for having a cooler. She then, at that point, heads to work, and Louis begins looking for a decent cooler to shock her with. He turns out to be exceptionally well known at the shop, and everybody begins asking him for proposals on great items. Be that as it may, when an outsider gets some information about an item from the organization where Singe works, Louis says it's actual terrible. The news rapidly arrives at Kong, who promptly knows it's Louis. He faces Louis and chastens him, letting him know that Sherry could lose her employment along these lines. Louis is given a final proposal. Possibly she loses her employment, or he moves in with Kong. Louis concurs, however, depending on the prerequisite that he gets her the ice chest. Louis calls Chari and welcomes her to the film, yet when they show up, it ends up being a thriller. The two of them move frightened and leave right off. As they walk, Sherry sees a ring she truly likes and needs to purchase, however Louis has no cash left. He then, at that point, advises her that he's going to live with Kong, which makes her resentful. At the point when she gets back, she tracks down the cooler and is staggered. Louis tells her that he got it in return for moving in with Kong. Byrne makes an impression on Kong, expressing gratitude toward him for the cooler, and demands paying for it. She likewise requests that he deal with Louis. She then, at that point, switches off her telephone, and continues to send messages to Louis in light of the fact that she's stressed over him. Louis, as well, is stressed over her, and misses her without question. Afterward, Louis and Toon proceed with their quest for Shai's sibling. They post his image on the web, and after they finish, Louis brings Toon back home, where they eat all the food in the ice chest. Notwithstanding, when Kong shows up and sees the wreck, he flies off the handle and makes them tidy up. In the wake of gaining from Melody that Shure is the one giving the cash and dealing with them, Kong ends up being considerably more enraged and chooses to give Louis something to do at a transportation organization so he can figure out how to fight for himself. In any case, Louis battles with the work since he's not accustomed to it and returns home depleted. Kong winds up dealing with him. Melody then, at that point, sees an outsider nearby and illuminates Louis that somebody was killed in that place 3 months prior and that the executioner hasn't been gotten at this point. Louis becomes exceptionally stressed over Shure and races to her. He leaves a directive for Kong letting him know that their understanding is off and that he's returning the clothes washer and the cooler. Sherry is excited when she sees him. The 3 young ladies who had recently thrashed her and taken her cash see Yuk Nant's image and call the number. At the point when they meet her, they accept she's there to get back at them and return the cash. Yet, when she makes sense of that she's Yuk Nant's sister, they advise her to set up the cash and they'll tell her where he is. Then at that point they leave. At the point when Mary visits she's home, she is astonished to find that she is residing with Louis. As they are together, Mary calls Sherry and when they meet, she gets some information about Louis. Mary tells her beginning and end and uncovers that Louis has lost his memory. She makes sense of that she remembered him when she saw him wearing a similar coat as her sibling. At that point, Mary understands that the individual who kicked the bucket instead of Louis probably been her sibling Yuk Nan. She gives Shure cash to assist with finding her sibling, which makes Shure extremely blissful. In any case, when Shure takes the cash to the young ladies, they trick her once more. What's more, it ends up, they don't have the foggiest idea where her sibling is. On the opposite side, a more odd breaks into Shai's home and goes after Louis. At the point when Shai returns, she tracks down the police at her home and turns out to be exceptionally stressed over Louis. In any case, it turns out it wasn't him who was gone after. At the point when Louis returns, he is worried for Shure and trusts everything to Toon. Shure calls Kong to beware of Louis. In the meantime, Mary lets her dad know that the individual who passed on in Louis' place was Shure's sibling. Her dad takes Louis' number from her and calls him, yet a medical caretaker replies, saying that the telephone's proprietor is in a medical procedure. Louis' image shows up on TV and Mary's dad arranges his significant other to go to Louis' grandma and ensure she doesn't see the television by any stretch of the imagination. The police track down fingerprints on a mallet, so they gather the official who knows Louis and Shai. The official lets them know that it's beyond the realm of possibilities for Louis to kill somebody. The police inquire as to whether he has at any point utilized a sledge, and he says that he utilized it once to strip off something yet can't recall much as a result of his amnesia. He is terrified, however Shure attempts to quiet him down. Kong shows up at the police headquarters, and they find no impressions matching the lawbreaker's shoes. Be that as it may, Louis starts to depict what the shoes could resemble, stunning everybody, even Kong, who then, at that point, chooses to allow them to live with him. They are thrilled at the proposition. When they move in with Kong, Kong becomes defensive of Shure, advising her to avoid Kong, however she chastens him. In the meantime, the grandma sees Louis on TV, and she can't accept the obvious reality. She is thrilled. The housekeeper promptly calls Louis' uncle to illuminate him regarding all that has occurred. Mr. Kim heads to Seoul to search for Louis. The following day, Louis lets Shure know that he was unable to rest since he was pondering her the entire evening, and concedes that he is desirous of Kong. At the point when they are going to leave for work, Louis demands going with them to drop them off. In the interim, Mary's dad educates her to ask Shuri where she's presently residing. At the point when Mary sees she at the organization, she asks her, yet she, apprehensive, won't uncover anything. She lies, saying that she is remaining at her neighbor's home. Be that as it may, Mary doesn't trust her, and when she visits the neighbor's home, she meets the cop and gets some information about it. He tells her beginning and end and affirms that they are residing at Kong's home. Louis' uncle shows up at Kong's home and is stunned to see him there. We then, at that point, streak back to Louis, taking Shur and Kong to the organization. He feels upset and calls Toon, requesting that he come over. Louis admits that he needs his memory back similarly as it was previously. Subsequent to figuring out that she and Louis are residing at Kong's home, Mary calls her dad, irately making sense of everything, except her dad quiets her down. This prompts her dad to visit Kong's home, where he advises Shur and Louis to stow away. At the point when he opens the entryway, he begins looking through each corner until Louis incidentally pushes something over. At that point, the uncle inquires as to whether another person is there. He goes into the room and searches, however they have previously covered up. Kong chides him, saying he can't act like this, since it's his home, not the organization. Louis' uncle blames Kong for having a relationship with Shur, which is the reason he advanced her from a cleaner to a staff part in the advancement office. Yet, Kong shields her, saying that she is exceptionally skilled and has demonstrated her value. Louis' uncle then takes steps to send Shur to the organization's branch in China prior to leaving, obviously agitated. Shuri hears the whole discussion and later apologizes to Kong. Shuri lets Kong know that they will leave, yet he items and demands they stay, so they consent to stay at his home. In the meantime, Mr. Kim goes to where Louis purchased the blossoms. The retailer lets him know that Louis purchased an orange blossom and referenced that he was getting it for the main love of his life, affirming to Mr. Kim that it was to be sure Louis. Kong contacts Louis about work, inciting him to get back and change into his business clothing. At the point when he shows up at the organization, everybody is intrigued by him. Kong at first appears to be prepared to go up against him, however abstains because of the presence of different workers. All things being equal, he presents Louis as their new partner. Louis starts to collaborate with every one of the representatives as though he were their chief. At the point when Louis begins working with Mary, she is stunned and quickly illuminates her dad. He tells her, there's just a single arrangement. They should dispose of Shai. The police figure out how to get the crook thanks to Louis, who had been helping them from the start. Louis lets them know that he was making espresso and went outside to get Shai from work. The man his uncle had employed had his spot and was the person who got gone after. At the point when the representatives get back from work, they find a note from Louis posting the undertakings they ought to focus on in the organization alongside a coordinated arrangement. Mary goes to meet Sherry to tell her that her sibling has kicked the bucket. Similarly, as she is going to uncover this, Louis shows up, driving Mary to stow away before he sees her. Afterward, Mary's dad takes her to her grandma's home and trains her, also Louis, since they are only one stage away from having every one of the resources moved to his name. Sherry chooses to get back to her home since the lawbreaker has been gotten. She lets Kong know that she will not go to the China branch since she's actually looking for her sibling. Kong answers that he won't let her leave, not even to move to another branch. Sherry packs her things and gets back with Louis. Louis arranges a great deal of food and they are exceptionally cheerful. He even sends a great deal of food to Kong. Louis asks Sherry everything she needs and she says to him she needs to visit the sea. So he takes her there right away. They go through the day together, feeling happy and content. Louis gets her another set of shoes which makes her exceptionally cheerful. They likewise visit a book fair and when Louis gets books in English he peruses them fluidly, amazing himself and Sherry too. He requests that she film him while he peruses books in various dialects, telling her that he wishes his recollections would return to him. Sherry requests him what the most joyful second from his life is and he recalls something critical in his life. At the point when he poses her a similar inquiry, she answers that the most joyful snapshots of her life are going on this moment. This makes Louis extremely cheerful. In the meantime, the cop visits where the music box is sold and inquires as to whether there's somebody named Louis there. A lady lets him know that Louis is the name of the organization proprietor's grandson who as of late died. The police officer is stunned and demands that Louis is as yet alive. Louis and she get back and Louis requests that she set up some nourishment for him. At the point when she asks where he's going he tells her he has an unexpected treat for her. He goes out to get her blossoms yet finds the shop shut, which makes him extremely resentful. Louis' uncle calls a legal counselor to move every one of the resources for his name as fast as could really be expected. All at once his better half enters and lets them know that Louis is as yet alive. The uncle advises the attorney to leave and return later, then, at that point, furiously goes up against his better half. She uncovers that she told everything to the police officer who was searching for Louis, illuminating him that Louis is the grandson of the organization proprietor. The police officer begins sorting out the occasions connected with Louis. Shore sits tight for Louis, yet returning he is constrained into a vehicle by certain men. Shore ends up being very stressed and contacts Kong, yet he tells her that Louis hasn't come to him. They then report Louis's vanishing to the police. The cop illuminates them that Louis is extremely rich and is the grandson of the organization proprietor where Shore works, stunning both Shore and Melody. Louis's grandma discovers that he is alive and is thrilled. They make sense of for her that Louis had been missing in light of the fact that he lost his memory. She says thanks to her child for finding Louis, who tells her that Louis is headed to them. At the point when Kong learns the full anecdote about Louis, he is stunned. Melody asks him how he didn't perceive Louis when he saw him. Kong makes sense of that nobody truly understands what the organization proprietor resembles. Toon expects that Louis deserted them once he learned of his abundance and abandoned them. Regardless of this, he is glad that Louis has gotten back to his loved ones. Mary's dad sets up for her to meet Louis, yet she is anxious and scared of how he will respond when he sees her. At the point when Louis shows up, Mr. Kim embraces him firmly, uncovering that Louis is the organization president. Louis is blissful, yet rapidly begins searching for his telephone to call Shore, yet he can't track down it. He frantically needs to get back to her, yet Mr. Kim demands that his grandma has been hanging tight for him for quite a while. At the point when Louis's grandma sees him, she embraces him, setting off a surge of recollections, and he swoons. She deals with him until he awakens. In the interim, she misses him profoundly and begins envisioning him all over the place, even en route to work. Louis's grandma lets his uncle know that she will give a portion of the organization to Louis and the other half to him. However, his uncle, being eager, needs the whole organization for himself. Louis needs to go to Shore, yet his grandma stops him. Louis, feeling hungry, begins eating in a weird way, amazing everybody. He tells Mr. Kim that he needs to see she and requests an enormous amount of cash. However, the housekeeper becomes dubious, figuring he may be a swindler or a hoodlum, yet Mr. Kim demands that he is certain it's Louis. He makes sense of that Louis is acting this way since he lost his memory. Shaw goes to work, and her manager inquires as to whether Louis has reached her or addressed her. Shaw says he hasn't, which amazes her since Louis used to constantly chase after her and couldn't manage without her. The manager proposes that Louis probably deserted her in the wake of finding he was well off, which makes she extremely miserable. Nonetheless, when she opens her PC, she finds a message from Louis telling her that he is fine and will see her soon. This encourages her altogether. In the meantime, Mary continues to scowl at Shaw with hatred and starts overburdening her with work, trusting she'll stop. At the point when she gets back, she finds that Louis has arranged an unexpected treat for herself and brought her blossoms. She is exceptionally cheerful, however declines his solicitation to live respectively, letting him know that he currently has another family and an alternate life. In spite of the fact that Louis believes her should live with him, she declines. Louis even brings gifts for Shaw and his mom, which makes them extremely cheerful. While getting back with Mr. Kim, Louis chooses to purchase another house for Shaw and Shaw to supplant the one they are at present residing in. Mary later meets with Kong and admits her adoration for him, however he dismisses her, telling her that he doesn't cherish her and knows that she's been utilizing him. He shouts at her and advises her to leave. Louis, unfit to rest, considers Shaw and tells her that he can't rest without her. He likewise vows to satisfy every one of her desires. In the meantime, the police officer surveys surveillance camera film until he sees Shaw's sibling going after Louis and driving him out of his vehicle, then taking the vehicle himself. This affirms that it was Shaw's sibling who passed on in the mishap, not Louis. The police officer visits she and tells her that he has tracked down her sibling. He takes her with him and illuminates her that her sibling kicked the bucket in Louis's place since he took Louis's vehicle. She is stunned and battles to trust it. Louis trusts in Mr. Kim that he cherishes she and starts getting some information about his previous existence. Discovering that he didn't have numerous companions and was known as the shopping ruler Louis. At the point when she discovers that her sibling has passed on, she is crushed and starts thinking back about their recollections together. The representatives figure out that the organization's grandson is really alive and wasn't the person who kicked the bucket. However, Mary excuses them, saying they all knew this. Louis faces his uncle, inquiring as to why he didn't remember him as the organization's main successor and a relative when they initially met. His uncle claims he thought Louis was simply somebody who looked like him. Mary enters and is stunned to see Louis. She lets him know she's been looking for him, however Louis treats her briskly, and her dad uncovers that they were companions when they were youthful. Louis then, at that point, lets Mary know that he doesn't adore her and that he cherishes she all things being equal. Timid, in the meantime, stalls in tears, reviewing the cop's words that her sibling took Louis's vehicle. All of a sudden, the doorbell rings, and Louis's grandma shows up. Bashful understands that she has met her previously. Louis's grandma expresses gratitude toward Modest for dealing with him, yet she is sorry, making sense of that in the event that her sibling hadn't taken Louis's vehicle, absolutely no part of this would have occurred. She sorrowfully concedes that it was her sibling who passed on. Louis's grandma attempts to comfort her, however at that point requests that she avoid Louis. Timid concurs, goes out, and leaves her work. She sends Louis a message telling him not to search for her since she is leaving. At the point when Kong sees Timid's message, he is upset and attempts to call her, however her telephone is switched off. Everybody is disheartened when they figure out that Modest has left and deserted everything, including Louis, who will not eat, drink, or rest since he is sorrowful. He chooses to look for herself and goes to Melody to ask where she is, however Toon at first will not tell him. In any case, under tension, Melody uncovers her area, and Louis promptly goes to see as her. She gets back to her old home, and when Kong views as her, she asks how he knew where to see as her. He tells her he gained everything from the police officer. Mary finds that she has relinquished her position and stands up to Melody, who uncovers she's whereabouts. She goes with him to view as Bashful. Kong is with Timid, and they are appreciating each other's conversation when Louis shows up and sees them together. Cheerful. In a snapshot of envy, Louis punches Kong, however rapidly apologizes. However, Kong doesn't acknowledge the expression of remorse. Louis questions Bashful about why she left him, yet Kong intercedes, approaching Louis, as he is uninformed that Modest is doing this as a result of her grandma and sibling. The following day, Bashful treats Louis brutally, advising him to leave since she doesn't adore him. Louis leaves with Kong, feeling profoundly hurt by Sher's words. Kong then chooses to tell Louis everything, except before he can, somebody collides with them, and this triggers Louis's recollections. He recollects that it was Sher's sibling who kicked the bucket in his place and starts crying, acknowledging he was the reason for her sibling's demise. Louis starts to review his recollections with she and feels regretful for being the explanation her sibling kicked the bucket. A month passes and Louis has totally changed. He even names his teddy bear, Bashful. It is uncovered that Kong left his work, and when the representatives get some information about it, she says she doesn't have any idea. She lets them know that the new administrator will be Louis, who was Sher's sweetheart, which disturbs them. At the point when Louis shows up, he chooses to assume control over She's office and is extremely satisfied with it. Kong and Sher open an online business organization, spend significant time in Ranch Produce, and their organization winds up contending with Louis's. Louis meets Kong and hollers at him for leaving. He lets him know that he doesn't have the foggiest idea who Sheila is and lashes out at him, however winds up working with him and turns into his driver. Sheila confesses all the house and understands that Louis had been there. They don't tell her that Louis purchased the house and put it in her name. Louis continues to sit tight for her until she nods off. The following day, she goes to work, and he cleans the house for her. He even watches out for her until she gets on the transport to work. Mary finds a rose right in front of her and believes it's from Louis, which satisfies her, yet it ends up being from Melody. At the point when she requests that Louis go out on the town with her, he hollers at her. Soon thereafter, it begins pouring, and Louis recalls that Sheila let him know she's apprehensive about downpour and thunder, so he chooses to go to her. At the point when Kong calls and figures out she's not feeling great, he goes to her right away. Louis sees them together and lashes out. Louis chooses to go to France, so he expresses farewell to his grandma, goes to express farewell to Toon's mom, and sends Sheila a message telling her he's leaving. At the point when she understands it, she gets extremely miserable. He likewise sends her a gift containing every one of their recollections together, and she cries each time she peruses the letters he sent. Yet, incidentally, Louis didn't travel. All things considered, he went to Busan to remember his recollections with Sheila. By some coincidence, he sees Nano and is stunned and glad to see that he's alive. However, when he awakens, he's reluctant to report him to the police and takes off. A bike hits Louis and he blacks out. Sheila, who has work in Busan, finds Louis destitute once more and not recalling that anything. She accepts him and calls Mr. Kim, letting him know that Louis is with her. At the point when Mr. Kim sees him, Louis takes off and gets on a yacht. Sheila follows him, and as they are going to leave, the cop calls her and tells her that her sibling is alive. She's stunned to see her sibling emerging from the yacht she's on. She embraces him and cries, letting him know she's been searching for him for such a long time. He gives her a telephone with a video from Louis, where he makes sense of that he vowed to take her sibling back to her and offers the entire story. Louis describes how, coming back to Korea, he saw a few young fellows on cruisers who began impeding his vehicle. At the point when he escaped the vehicle to stand up to them, they undermined him except if he gave them everything. Louis gives them everything. Be that as it may, as he's going across the street, he gets hit and loses his memory. He then, at that point, pursues Nano and embraces him, glad to have tracked down him. He tells Nano that Sheila has been searching for him for quite a while and shares everything with him. He lets him know that after the group chief took the vehicle, he got into a mishap, and everybody included passed on. Louis had arranged everything so Sheila would be brought together with her sibling. Everybody meets up, and she is excited with how they generally helped her. They head back, and as they get into the vehicle, they squabble over who will sit close to Sheila. At the point when they return home, Louis would rather not leave, however Melody's mom persuades him to go. In the interim, the man Mary's dad employed to kill Louis recovers cognizance and calls Louis, taking steps to uncover everything. Louis gets extremely terrified and goes to Louis to ensure nobody lets him know anything. At the point when the telephone rings, Louis replies, yet Mary's dad shows up and compels him to hang up. Louis becomes dubious of him. Subsequent to leaving Louis's place, Mary's dad meets the man he recruited and requests a huge amount of cash, taking steps to let Louis everything know if he doesn't get it. The man concurs and returns the following day to surrender the accounts in return for the cash. Louis takes Sheila out for a feast, and she's cheerful. He welcomes her to his home where she brings a gift for his grandma, who is extremely satisfied with it. Sheila becomes ill from eating an excessive number of desserts, and her grandma believes she's pregnant and gets exceptionally energized. At the point when Sheila gets back, Toon's mom additionally implies that she may be pregnant. Nano battles with his examinations and gets reprimanded by Louis for not figuring out anything, but rather Toon's mom consoles him, inquiring as to whether he truly grasps anything himself. At the point when Louis gets back, he tracks down Mr. Kim holding a bouquet and discovers that he and Kong are enamored, which makes him extremely glad for them. Louis informs Zhang regarding the young ladies who took cash from them and misled him. Zhang chooses to get back at them, whips them, and carries them to Louis. Louis drives them to strip things until they reimburse all the cash they took from him and Sheila. Louis goes to the organization to see Sheila, and when Kong becomes weary of him, he proposes they go into an association. Mr. Kong concurs, and Sheila settles on the condition that they don't change the costs. They all concur, and Kong chooses to get away. Louis embraces Kong and lets him know that he cherishes him and is glad to have him around. At the point when Louis gets back to the organization after a long non-attendance, every one of the representatives are extremely glad to see him. He acquaints them with the new group. Mary is stunned when she sees Sheila and Kong. Louis moves his office in verse Sheila's. Mr. Kim gets disappointed with Nano on the grounds that he actually sees nothing in spite of all the work. Louis gets back with Sheila, who finds that Louis has cooked for her, and she is extremely cheerful. At the point when she plunks down to eat, she is shocked to find that he has gotten her the ring she generally longed for. She's excited, and he puts the ring on her finger, making her extremely cheerful. Mr. Kim goes to find the container that Louis filled him in about, yet he can't track down it. At that point, the man Mary's dad employed to kill Louis enters. At the point when Louis hears his voice, he feels like he remembers it. The man, who presently has the cash to get away, meets the one who had recently taken cash from Sheila. She deceives him and takes the pack from him, and he can't get her. He then gets back to Louis, yet Louis feels that he has heard his voice previously. Mary's dad shows up and removes the man, hollering at him in the vehicle. The man lets him know that the cash was taken and requests more cash, or he will tell Louis everything. Sheila purchases a ring for Louis as a present. Louis goes to Sheila with loads of gifts, which makes her exceptionally blissful. He doesn't allow her to do anything, and he attempts to cook, yet wrecks everything. Mary's dad figures out how to conceal the man until he can get more cash for him. Louis gets back and asks Sheila, however she lets him know she will reply after the singing contest during the excursion. The following day, they go out traveling and everybody is cheerful. They mess around, and Sheila is in Kong's group. The one who is recruited by Mary's uncle thinks that Mary's dad announced him. At the point when he sees the cop, he gets away from through the window, yet the official was exclusively there to purchase a book. At the point when Mary's dad shows up, he looks for him, yet can't track down him. Mary's dad is exceptionally apprehensive that the man will tell Louis everything. The singing contest happens and Louis wins. He inquires as to whether she consents to accompany him, yet she's uncertain how to answer. At the point when now is the ideal time to rest, Sheila calls Louis to meet him. Mary sees her and gives her coat to wear since it's virus. Mr. Louis creeps up behind Sheila and grabs her. Louis tracks down the ring and is blissful, however starts looking for her. At the point when he calls her, her telephone is off, which shocks him. Mr. Louis considers Mary's dad and lets him know that he has seized his girl, which makes him exceptionally stressed. Everybody awakens and joins Louis in looking for Sheila. Mary's dad is feeling significantly better when he hears from her. Nonetheless, she lets him know that Keol was captured rather than her little girl, so they understand that she was taken accidentally. They actually take a look at the observation cameras and affirm that she was to be sure hijacked. Louis confounded about why she was abducted since she doesn't appear to know anybody, however they accept this is on the grounds that the ruffians needed cash from him. Mr. Joe figures out that the individual seized isn't Marie yet Sheila, so he calls Mary's dad and undermines him. Mary's dad requests that he discharge Sheila and vows to bring all the cash, however Mr. Joe rejects and gets into his vehicle. While driving, he gets into a mishap. The medical attendant calls Louis to educate him that the proprietor regarding the telephone is in the clinic, so they generally rush there. They see Mr. Joe and are stunned. The police let them know that he's a similar individual who caused the mishap at their home. Everybody is astounded, and the specialist lets them know that Mr. Joe is in basic condition and could pass on. At the point when Louis goes to mind Sheila, he thinks that she is protected and feels much better. Marie's dad requests that his better half convey the crate from their home to Louis, and desperately calls the organization's legal advisor. Louis keeps on focusing on Sheila, and she is glad to see the ring on his finger. She lets him know that she cherishes him without a doubt, and they get back together. Marie's dad recalls when he let Louis know that he thought Louis had passed on and laments his activities, saying he never maintained that him should kick the bucket just to be in a mishap. Louis asks Mr. Kim, assuming he knows how to drive, and he concedes that whenever he first drove, he got into a mishap. He lets Louis know that his uncle was the person who gave him the vehicle, making Louis dubious of his uncle. Louis stands up to his uncle at his home, and his uncle asks for absolution, making sense of that he just did what he did in light of the fact that their grandma chose to pass on everything to Louis. He never maintained that Louis should bite the dust. He simply needed to ensure their grandma sent him back to France. His uncle cries, and Louis excuses him, however lets him know that someone else kicked the bucket in the mishap rather than him, so his uncle chooses to hand himself over. He contacts the legal counselor to return every one of the properties to Louis. Subsequently, Louis gets some information about the cash taken from Marie's dad, and it turns out a lady had taken the sack with all the cash. They capture her in light of the depiction, and Sheila is stunned to see her at the police headquarters. She asks for the cash to be returned on the grounds that it has a place with somebody she knows, and the lady consents to give it back. Mr. Joe surrenders a recording of his discussion with Marie's dad, demonstrating that he never planned to kill anybody. Marie's dad is feeling better and gets an extremely light sentence. He says thanks to Sheila for all that she accomplished for him, and he sends a letter to Marie and her mom, letting them know the amount he cherishes them while crying. Mr. Kim shows Sheila's granddad a photo that incorporates Louis's dad and mom. The granddad reviews old recollections and cries. Sheila tears open a stash and sends the cash to Lou, proposing he use it to purchase a present for his grandma. He gets her another sets of shoes, and she's excited with the gift. The following day, Lou goes to awaken his grandma yet observes that she has died, leaving him crushed. He and Sheila visit her grave and afterward get back. Lou stays with Sheila's family for supper, however Marie's mom calls him, saying she has something critical to show him. Mr. Kim asks Nan for what reason he took off, and Nan makes sense of that he needed to be important for a narrative film. He recollects the initial time he and Lou saw the narrative, and how intrigued Lou was with Sheila, needing to fulfill her. They call Lou and they watch Sheila's narrative together, fulfilling them all. Kong takes on a major job in the organization, doing right by everybody. He welcomes Chil to supper, yet she declines, saying Lou wouldn't support. Mr. Kim proposes to Kong, and she blissfully concurs. Lou chooses to set up a major party for them and gifts them a vehicle to celebrate. Marie reviews Lou, telling her it was clear she adored Kong and admits her sentiments just to be dismissed. She sends him a message, conceding that she really cherishes him. Kong is cheerful and appears to begin creating affections for her. Lou tells his companion Melody that Marie is enamored with Kong, which makes Kong miserable on the grounds that he had begun to like her. Lou chooses to propose to Chil. All at once, Marie's mom calls and shows him a significant video. At the point when Lou watches it, he is overpowered with satisfaction. He calls Chil, requesting that she meet him the following day since he has something essential to show her. She concurs, and the next day he takes her to the film. The video ends up being an organization festivity checking a long time since its establishing, with an extraordinary honor given to Chil's mom and father. Chil is wearing a similar dress her mom wore, and when she sees them, she starts to sob uncontrollably. She likewise sees that Lou was there and needed to give her a gift. She gives Lou the gift and lets him know she doesn't need it. Chil is stunned by what she sees since she has known Lou since they were youngsters. The story closes joyfully as they get hitched, and the series finishes up on that note. Gratitude for watching. In the event that you partook in our recap, remember to raise a ruckus around town button and look at additional recaps on our channel.